Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday morning to you. Hello to Julie, who already typed in and said good morning. Good morning to you as well. And good morning to anyone else who is joining us live this morning. Have a really jam-packed program for you today for about an hour or so. Going to try really hard not to go longer than an hour. Might go a little shorter than an hour. We'll see. But it's going to be right around an hour, so you can plan your day accordingly. Wonderful to have anyone who's joining us here. And if you are joining us live, please type into the YouTube chat and let me know you're here so that I know you're joining us. Julie, I see that you're here, and it's great to have you here this morning. Real quick, just before we get started, a little teaser of what we're about to cover is how to build strong relationships and be a positive influence on the people around you. A subject I'm very passionate about, very excited to talk about because this just helps define such a major part of our lives. The relationships that we forge in our lives, both the short-term relationships, the long-term relationships. This information is going to be very powerful to each and every one of you. If your goal is to build better relationships with people and be able to influence them in a positive way, not in a manipulation sort of way, not in a trickery sort of way. But let's not kid ourselves. Persuasion is a very important part of our day-to-day lives. And we'll get into more detail about that in a moment. But I want to thank those of you that are also watching the recording of this program afterward. Sorry if you were not able to join us live, but better to watch the recording a little later than to not get this information at all. Now, I've worked really hard over the last week or so putting this program together. And this is all based on research that I've done over the last 30 plus years in human psychology, human relationships, the power of persuasion, that I've used both for my marketing abilities, my salesmanship abilities in my day-to-day work, but also in consulting and coaching with business owners and so forth on how to best have relationships with their staff, with potential clients, with their family members and so forth, and find that right balance between business and personal life. And I'm really happy to be passing this on to each and every one of you, regardless of what it is you do in your day-to-day life. Whether you are the owner of a Fortune 500 company, or whether you own a small business, or whether you don't own a business at all and you're taking care of a family or raising children, have a spouse that you want to have a better relationship with. That's what today is all about, is building great relationships, great friendships with people, and having them truly feel and understand that you care about them and that you're there for them, and build those relationships very quickly. So without further ado, again, those of you joining us live, please type into the chat and let me know you're here so we know who is joining us. The only way I know who's here is if you type in. Don't worry, I'm not going to force you to participate or anything like that. We're not going to be doing any exercises today. Although, later I got to do some exercising. It's a little bit of a dreary Saturday this morning, but I'm going to have to get some cardio in today. I got to work on this relationship as well as those external relationships, right? But let's dive right in to how to build strong relationships with the people around you. Now, the reason that I wanted to cover this today, hello, Leah, who says, I am here live today and so glad that you are too. Thank you, Leah. It's wonderful to see you on here with us live, joining Julie, who's also on with us live. Wonderful to have both of you here. The reason I wanted to cover this today is that the quality of our lives is very much determined by two things: our relationship with ourselves and our relationships with the people around us. Okay, that's what really defines our lives. Our relationship with ourselves, which we've covered a lot and talked about a lot on our previous programs here over the last few weeks, last few months, is our relationship with ourselves. How do we communicate with ourselves? The power of PTS time, setting goals, having those communications with ourselves so we know what's important to us. But also, what about those relationships with the people around us? That is such a massive part of who we are, the legacy we're going to leave behind, but most importantly, just the quality of life that we have and the people around us have. Whether you have a family, whether you have children, spouse, loved ones, still with parents in your lives, friends, co-workers, whatever it is, we are constantly around other people and influencing each other. And today is as much about making sure that we are providing a wonderful space for the people around us as it is about letting them know how they can best be there for you as well, opening those lines of communication. So just keep that in mind as we go forward here. The quality of our lives is determined by the relationship we have with ourselves and the relationship we have with those around us. Now, this program is not, I have to be super clear about this because it's easy to think by listening to this that this is about manipulation, trickery, things like that, but it is not at all. In fact, it's not manipulation, trickery. It's not about having power over other people. It's about building strong and true relationships with everybody in your life. I don't believe in doing things that are about tricking people. Now, as a marketer, as somebody who's spent a great amount of his life doing marketing, consulting, crafting marketing messages for different businesses, and so forth, believe me, I've studied and heard all of the stuff, well, not all of it, but I've heard a lot of stuff out there in the world about how to be a marketer. And a lot of it is not good. A lot of it is utilizing negative or black hat strategies, if you will, to manipulate people into doing something that they maybe shouldn't do or maybe wouldn't want to do, but convincing them that they should anyway. If that's what you have to do as a marketer, then you shouldn't be in the marketing world. If that's what you have to do as a salesperson in order to sell the item or service that you're selling, you should be in a different line of work because you don't believe enough in what you're doing to believe that it has true value to someone. And today is not about any of that. It's about honestly, truthfully building powerful relationships through these methods. And it will work no matter what relationship you're in, no matter what relationship you're trying to improve. It might be that friend that you haven't had a relationship with in a very long time, somebody you haven't been in contact with in a while. It might be that child that you're trying to convince them of why they need to do their homework before they go play their video games. It might be your parent who's trying to convince you that you should do your homework before you play your video games, and you want to convince them why doing the reverse is the right thing. Whatever it is, it's not only about you being able to persuade others to see your point of view, but also to help you to understand and truly connect with their point of view as well. Because if you want to be truly great at persuading people to see your point of view, one of the best things you can do is to first let them know you care about their point of view as well. So it's a two-way street here. Every communication, every interaction that we have with people is a two-way street first and foremost. So we've got to keep those things in mind as we go forward. So first off, I want to give some credit where credit is due. Now, these are only 3 people that and resources that I've learned a lot from over the years in these areas. It's only 3 of probably dozens, easily dozens of resources. But I want to share some of these with you in case you would like to learn more about this stuff, dig a little deeper, because we can only go so deep in 1 hour together. So if you'd like more information, you can certainly reach out to me. I could easily do a 4 to 8 hour program on just this one subject of what we're covering over the next hour here, easily, and maybe even longer, multiple days, okay? But we don't have that time here, but I'm happy to continue this conversation with you after this program is done, or if you would like, you can look into some of these resources. First and foremost is Dale Carnegie, author, a very powerful business person from the early 20th century, probably even the late 19th century before that, but really most famous in the early 20th century, early 1900s. who wrote an incredible book that is as relevant today as it's ever been. You know, some of the references in it might be a little dated, things like that. But for the most part, the principles that are in there, the core of what is in this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, are as relevant today as they've ever been. Incredible book, wonderful. You'll have to, look aside some of the references and things like that from time to time and have your own input there. But really, I can't recommend this book highly enough if you want to expand upon the things that we're covering today. So that's Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Number 2, of course, you've heard me talk about Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins before. I can't recommend highly enough as well, dipping your toe into the Tony Robbins pool. That sounds very cultish, doesn't it? You know what I mean, though. And again, I've said this before about Tony Robbins. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't follow everything he says, nor should you with anybody that you follow. You should never just blindly follow anyone. You should always go, well, I don't know about that one. But 90% of the things that I've heard and learned from Tony Robbins, I agree with wholeheartedly and have proven to work in my life. And a large part of what he talks about in his programs are your communication with yourself and your communications with others, the relationships that you're forging. And all you have to do is watch a live program of his once and watch the rapport that he's building with a live audience. There's a wonderful program, by the way, on Netflix. At least it was on Netflix. I haven't checked recently to see if it's still on there. But it's called Tony Robbins, I Am Not Your Guru. And if you get a chance to watch it, now I will tell you, when you first start watching it, it might put you off. It put me off a little bit at the beginning because I heard Tony Robbins do something on that program that I hadn't heard him do to this degree much before, and that was a lot of swearing when he was talking. And not that I'm against swearing. I love a good, colorful curse word from time to time. I sure do. I'm a writer. I'm an actor. The use of language is a very powerful thing. And sometimes, you know what, a well-placed curse word can get a point across, right? But it was a little off-putting at the beginning. But if you want to see the relationships that he's building with people and so forth, you might want to check that program out, or just go on YouTube and search on any live programs that Tony Robbins has given over the last 3 or 4 decades, and you'll be able to see the incredible relationship he's building with complete strangers sometimes in a very powerful way. And it's genuine with this guy, okay? You can tell when things are genuine. I hope you can feel it here, that the reason that I'm here today is to help one of you improve in just a tiny way. If I can do that, then I feel like I'm doing my job here, if you want to call it a job. And I'm not getting paid anything to be here today. I'm doing this because I just want to affect one of you and help one of you in a tiny way with some of the things that I've discovered over the years that have helped me so immensely. And I feel like Tony Robbins comes across very similarly. Now, I'm sure there are days that he doesn't want to do what he's doing. There are days that he questions, things. We all do that. That's very normal. But check out Tony Robbins. And then the last one here, who's not quite as easy to check out, but it's my father, Charles Lewis, who's the first person, coupled with my mother, Sherry Lewis, who put me on to learning how to better myself on a regular basis. That encouraged me to improve, to learn, to look outside my own small sphere of influence and see what else is out there. So I have to give credit where credit is due, both of my parents. But the reason I'm singling out my father here is because he owned a business that I've worked in for many, many years and have worked side by side with him in helping to teach things and so forth to photographers all over the country. And it's through a lot of that I've learned a lot of the things that I now teach to other people in all different fields, and including the stuff that I teach to you. I first was encouraged to learn these things from both of my parents, but especially my father, working side by side with him in the business as well. Okay, so actually, let me bring that photograph up, because there's the photograph of my dad right there, who I was just talking about. So thank you very much to these 3 resources, as well as the many others that I've had over the years. Now, everything we're talking about today is rooted in human psychology. The beauty of human psychology is it doesn't change. Human psychology doesn't change. Now, what does change is our understanding of it. the degree to which we can get in the heads of people, really, and understand what human psychology is, what causes the responses that we have and stuff like that. Of course, our knowledge of it is always growing. But the human condition doesn't change much. Remember, at its core, we as human beings have two main goals in our lives. From moment to moment, we are living one of two goals every moment of our lives: to either avoid pain or gain pleasure. That's it. At its core, that is what drives human psychology. Now, what our definitions of those are different for each person, where we live, the geography, our situation around us, it changes those. But every decision we make is either to avoid pain or gain pleasure. And that's the beauty of anything that's rooted in human psychology, like the stuff that we're going to be talking about today, is that human psychology is not going to change. 100 years from now, it's going to be the same as it is today. 200 years, 300 years, it's pretty much going to be the same. Our understanding of it might be more, but the principles of it are going to be the same. So we want to keep that in mind. We have hundreds, if not thousands of years of official study and knowledge about human psychology. We should use this to improve on our relationships. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to reinvent the human brain. We just need to keep utilizing the understanding we have of it to be as effective communicators and relationship builders as we can possibly be. Now, a reminder, if you're joining us live here and you haven't already typed into the YouTube chat, type in and let us know that you're here. Really appreciate knowing you're here. And if you have a question or a comment as we're going along here, please feel free to type that in as well. This is an interactive live event to whatever degree you want it to be. Utilize this time and feel free to ask a question, make a comment. Even if that comment is, I disagree with everything that you're saying, Todd, that's all right. We'll talk about that. I love a healthy, constructive, and courteous debate about any of these principles. I'm not an expert. What is an expert? How do you define an expert? I mean, I've spent a lot of my life, I've invested a whole lot of my life into studying these principles, testing them on myself and on other people, and getting feedback. And I have invested a huge amount of time on this. Am I an expert? No, of course not. Is Tony Robbins an expert? Well, I would say probably. If I had to consider somebody an expert, Tony Robbins, Dale Carnegie, Stephen Covey, these people are people who have invested their entire lives, almost every moment, studying the human condition and human psychology. But I know an awful lot about what I'm talking about here, and I'm here to help you with it. So let's get into key point number one. Questions are the answer. Now, I made this number one because I truly feel like this is the core of everything right here. Questions are the answer. The person who asks the questions is the person who is, quote unquote, in control of the conversation. Now, the reason I put in control in quotes is I don't want to make it sound like we're trying to control people. But there's just no better way to kind of state this that I have found anyway, than to say that the person who asks the questions is the person who's in control of the conversation. We're not trying to control the person. We're not even necessarily trying to control the conversation as a whole, but we're definitely guiding it. That might be a better way to put it. It's guiding the conversation, but it's the person that's asking the questions that has that power. And by power, I mean, let's quote Spider-Man, right? Or Uncle Ben, I guess, with great power comes great responsibility, right? If we know we've got that power, that's a great responsibility we're wielding. And we're hopefully going to be utilizing that to better these relationships and to better the person on the other side of that relationship, rather than using it to negatively manipulate or trick them. But questions build rapport. They build rapport. When you ask someone a genuine question and you wait for their response and you genuinely listen, fully listen to their response, that's building rapport. That's showing that you care. We don't ask questions of people unless we care about something, right? You don't ask a question of someone unless you care about getting an answer, whether that is a selfish reason that you want to get that answer, whether it's a manipulation reason that you want to get that answer, or a genuine desire to get to know that person better. You are looking for an answer, and that shows you care. So questions build rapport. Questions lead to real listening. And believe me, people can tell when you're really listening, right? You've been in those situations where you've been having a conversation with somebody and they asked you a question, and then as you were giving them the answer, you could just tell by the look on their face and their eyes and just everything, their body language, their posture, everything, that they were just waiting for you to finish answering so they could say the next thing that they wanted to say. But they weren't really listening to your answer, right? We've all been there. And conversely, you've probably been in situations where somebody asked you a genuine question, and then you could tell they were fully invested in hearing, not just listening to, but really hearing and absorbing your answer to that question. And that's how we build genuine rapport right there. That's how you build that rapport. But you've got, it encourages genuine listening, but we have to make sure we are really listening. That's especially hard for people in the sales industry. This is one of the parts of the training that I do for people on a daily basis, is getting them as salespeople to look past the desire to do all the talking. The person that's doing all the talking is not the one that's guiding this conversation. The one that's asking the questions and genuinely listening to the answers is the one who's really moving this conversation forward. Let's use selling as an example because it's an easy one for us all to relate to. Each and every one of us have either been selling something or been sold something over the course of our lives. So if you think of it this way, most people, if you want to get to know how to sell somebody something that you have, one of the best things you can do is ask them what they want. One of my favorite questions in selling, I was not intending on talking about this today, but this is a great illustration of this. And this is a great question that you can use in everyday life. I don't remember if I have this to talk about later in this program. If I do, I'll repeat it then. But I don't think I put this down. And if I didn't, I'm shocked that I didn't think to put this in the program. In selling, one of my favorite questions to ask is what's called the magic question. And the magic question goes like this. If you don't mind me asking, what's most important to you about blank? And then that blank, you fill in whatever it is that this person has contacted you about. Let's say I'm selling, let's say I work at a hardware store, okay, or own a hardware store, and a person has come in there and said, hey, yeah, I'm looking to purchase a hammer. What do you guys have as far as hammers are concerned? Oh, well, that's great. Well, one of the things I could do is I could walk over to our wall full of hammers and I could go, here are our hammers. Now, this one right here is a great hammer. This hammer, it's our most expensive hammer, but this one will last all the time. Here's another hammer here that's great for tapping in small nails. If you're doing like carpentry work or you're doing little like molding work and stuff like that. Here's a gigantic sledgehammer if you need that to break. What I'm doing is I'm just inundating them with information. I'm not building a relationship, not building a rapport, and I'm not finding out what's important to them. And believe me, if somebody's coming in looking for a hammer, they've got at least an idea of what they want that hammer for. So one of the best things we can do is ask them, if you don't mind me asking, what's most important to you about the hammer you're looking for? Now that's a great question. Because it's, first of all, it's an open question, not a closed question. It's not a question that can be answered with yes or no or maybe. They have to elaborate on it. So we get to know something. And when I genuinely listen to their response, they might say, well, I'm looking for a hammer that's going to be really safe to use, and that's got a good handle. I need a hammer that's got a good handle on it. I like the feel of it. I want to make sure that it doesn't slip out of my hand at any point or anything like that. So once you know that that's what's important, that's going to take you to a whole different part of the wall of the hammers, right? Now, that's just the example of hammers, but you can use this in every walk of life. When I'm talking to photographers, and somebody's contacted them about having a family portrait created, I always tell them, one of the questions you're going to want to be sure to ask them when you're talking with them, either on the phone or in person or whatever it is ask them the magic question. If you don't mind me asking, what's most important to you about these family portraits? And the answer you're going to get from each person is going to be different. No two people are going to give exactly the same answer. And now you've shown that you care about what's important to them. You didn't say, how many images do you want? How much money do you want to spend? No, that's not at the emotional core of this. What's at the emotional core is, what do you want to get out of these family portraits? Now, let's take this out of the context of business and let's put this in the context of our everyday lives and our everyday interactions. You can use this magic question with everyone. Let's say you're having a debate with your significant other, okay? Your significant other the person that you have a romantic relationship with, somebody that you love and care about deeply, and you're having a debate, argument, whatever you want to call it, all right, yeah. You're having a disagreement about where to go to dinner tonight. Let's make it something super simple, okay? You want to go to the new fancy Italian restaurant that just opened. Your significant other wants to go to Pizza Hut. Okay, nothing wrong with that, both Italian-ish. But you know what? Two different restaurants. Now, one of the things and maybe you're at a little bit of a stalemate. They really want Pizza Hut. You really want the Italian restaurant. Well, one of the things you can ask them is well, if you don't mind me asking, what is it that makes you want to go to Pizza Hut so badly tonight? What is it? What's most important to you about going to Pizza Hut tonight? Wow, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I really thought pizza sounds good. Pizza's always good. I just love pizza. Well, now okay, they just want to go. They just love pizza. Then you can say, well, the Italian place that I'm talking about going to, one of the things I've heard about them is that they're almost world famous for their wood-fired pizzas. Have you ever tried a wood-fired pizza? Well, I haven't had a wood-fired pizza. I just kind of like pizza. I like traditional, just simple pizza. Well, maybe we should go there and try this, and you might like that just as much. Oh, yeah, I guess we could try it. You see, but what you did was by asking that question, what's most important to you about going to Pizza Hut tonight? What is it that you most want to get out of that? Because there might be a middle ground in there that we can talk about. And then genuinely listen to their answer and then respond in kind, okay? Now, that's just an example. I'm sure I could have given a better example. I don't know, but that's the first example that came to mind. Questions, build rapport, lead to genuine listening. And think back to the first conversation you had with somebody over the years where you felt like, after just meeting this person, you built this incredible rapport with them. For some reason, you left that conversation feeling like this is one of the best conversations I've had. I feel really close to this person and I just met them. Think back to one of those times and ask yourself in that situation, who did the majority of the talking? I'm willing to bet when you really look at it, the person that did the majority of the talking in that situation was you. It was you. It wasn't the other person. The temptation is to think that if I want to get somebody to like me, if I want to build a rapport with somebody that I just met, then I got to let them know a lot about myself so that they can connect to me and the inverse is actually true. If you want to build a rapport with them, then your goal should be to get to know them, to get them talking. Because then what happens is they're going to say, wow, that person, referring to you, is so easy to talk to, right? That's so easy to talk to. It's just like I just felt like I could talk about anything. Why? Because you were asking genuine questions that elicited an emotional response, an emotional connection, building a rapport, building trust, and then you genuinely listened to their response. So very powerful. And we don't do this very often. I'm even guilty of forgetting this from time to time, and I catch myself usually when I do this. That I'll be having a conversation with somebody and I realize, wow, I'm just talking an awful lot about myself, and I say that to myself, and then I will stop and say, you know what, but enough about me. I'd love to know how's your week been? Because it's been kind of a crazy week for a lot of people. How's your week been? And just get them talking about themselves and genuinely listening. So key point number 1, questions are the answer. This is the number 1 key point for a reason. So the next interactions that you have with people in your life that you're trying to build a powerful relationship with, ask yourself, am I doing all of the talking? Am I answering all the questions? Or am I asking the powerful questions and genuinely listening to their responses? Key point number 2 is the key point of the process of mirroring. This is a powerful and very misunderstood and underutilized principle of human bonding, mirroring. So first of all, what is mirroring? Mirroring is where when two people come together and are really building a true rapport with each other, oftentimes what happens on a subconscious level, without either person oftentimes even realizing it's happening, just happens kind of naturally on its own, is the two people start to mirror each other. They start to become in sync with each other in a way where their body language starts to mimic each other a little bit. I'm not talking exactly. I'm not talking the point of direct mimicking each other. but their body language will start to resemble each other's body language. Even their voice patterns can start to become more similar. The rate at which they're speaking, the volume at which they're speaking, the amount to which they make eye contact with each other, even their breathing patterns can start. You may have noticed this with a significant other. You might be sitting on the sofa, snuggling with each other and, I don't know, watching something on TV, just relaxing. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but I've certainly noticed this before, that sometimes your breathing, the two of you, your breathing will become in sync with each other. Not exactly all the time, but just, and you just realize that, oh my gosh, we're kind of breathing together, right? And there are all sorts of examples of our bodies naturally mirroring and getting in sync with each other in nature. That we won't go into detail here, but if that's happening in nature automatically already in some ways, then maybe we can help to guide that mirroring in some ways if we are conscious of it happening and take a conscious approach to utilizing that ability to improve our relationships and our communications with each other. So that's what mirroring is. And again, it's not about mimicking people, and it's certainly not about doing an impression of them. I'm not talking about where, you're having a conversation with somebody and they're gesturing with their hands like this, so you gesture with your hands like this right when they're doing. Of course not. Of course not. However, if you're having a conversation with somebody who does tend to talk with their hands more than maybe you do, I definitely talk with my hands quite a bit. It's just one of the ways I tend to express myself. If somebody else does that and you're a little bit more of a person who doesn't utilize your hands that much, you may want to just start using your hands a little bit more as you notice that, because that will subconsciously be building a relationship, a rapport, a connection with that other person. Because remember, people like people who are like them. That is a major key point of human psychology. People tend to like people that they believe are like them. Now, for good or bad, this is a human psychology principle that is etched in stone. Now, there are physiological and evolutionary reasons why this is what it is. If you go all the way back to Neanderthal days and when we first started forming tribes together and so forth, it was people that were looking for people that were like them, i.e. this is somebody who wants similar things to me. They want to go out there and get food, and they want to keep the whole tribe safe, and they don't want to kill us. Okay? It's that simple. But nowadays, right, we gravitate toward people that we perceive to be like us. Some people do that in extreme ways that are not healthy to society, i.e. groups of people that stay huddled around each other because of the way they look, their skin color, their, white supremacists. Let's use that as an extreme example, right? It can be unhealthy for individuals and society. But most of the time, this can be really powerful when we realize, hey, I'd like to be around people who have the same, a similar moral structure to mine. Okay, that's great. Doesn't mean they're going to be exact, of course not. We gotta have some leeway there. But hey, I might want to be around people who tend to be more positive than negative. Because, hey, that's just how I'm trying to be and how I like to be, then we might gravitate toward people that have a little bit more of a positive outlook. If you tend to be more of a glass is half empty person, you might gravitate more toward people who also have that outlook. Well, that same thing goes to other people and their response to you. So the more you can mirror them, that's the extreme example of showing that you may be like them. Now, this can be done in so many ways. It can be done through tone of voice. It can be done through body language. It can be done through the volume at which you talk. I'm a very loud speaker. Partially, I think this is from my theater upbringing, but also that I've been an educator on the stage and so forth. And one of my worst fears is people not being able to hear. Because if they can't hear you, they're not going to believe your character if you're on stage, or they're not going to believe the message that you're getting across. So first and foremost, you got to be heard. And I come from a world where microphones were not used in theater to the degree that they are today. So I learned how to project my voice very early on. And now I just do that as a habit, especially when I'm teaching things. I get energized, I get excited. I tend to speak quite loudly. Now, however, if I'm talking with someone one-on-one that maybe is not as loud of a talker, they might talk a little bit softer, they maybe have a little bit of a quieter demeanor to them, then what I immediately start doing in a non-manipulative sort of way is I may change my tone of voice just a little bit. I might talk a little softer. I might talk a little slower if they tend to be, a little slower in their speech patterns. Because if they talk like this, and I'm always talking like this, boom, 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 there's an immediate disconnect there, right? It's hard to build that rapport. We're rubbing against each other. We're grinding the gears. So be conscious of how the person sitting across from you is holding themselves, how they're communicating, the tone of voice that they're using, the pace at which they're talking, all of that stuff. Be aware of that in a moment-to-moment basis. The body language. How does somebody hold themselves when they're seated? What's their posture like? If their posture tends to be more upright and kind of at attention, then you might want to just kind of bring your posture to that. If their posture tends to be a little bit more, relaxed, then you can kind of sit back, relax, okay? Because again, that's making that subconscious, deep psychological connection right out of the gate. Now, I've proven this. If we were doing a live program right now, what I would do, and I've done this multiple times, and it's always wonderful to watch, is I will pull somebody from the audience. I'll just say, hey, so would somebody like to volunteer to do an example of this? And don't worry, you won't have to do anything. I'm going to do all the work. And I'll wait, somebody raise their hands, have them come up. And what I will do is I will tell everyone in the audience, I will say, what I'm going to do is, over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to do my best to affect this person's physiology through mirroring. And I'm going to do it in a very subtle way. And what I'll do is I'll sit across from them and I'll just start a conversation with them. And what I'll do is I'll pay attention to how they're holding themselves, how they're carrying themselves, how they're breathing, how the pace at which they're talking, the energy with which they're communicating, all that stuff. And I will start to mirror that a little bit. And then once I've mirrored that for a short period of time, I usually accelerate this when I'm doing it on stage so that it doesn't take 20 minutes, it takes 5. But once I have started to mirror them, then what I will do is I will slowly start to change my end of this, and they will mirror it back without realizing it. So after I've started talking a little slower, maybe if they talk a little bit slower, I'm talking a little softer, I'm just kind of easing back a little bit. But then what I might start doing is I might start talking to them a little bit quicker, getting a little bit more energy into my voice. I might be leaning forward a little bit more as I'm talking to them. And what ends up happening is they end up starting to do the same, and they start to get a little bit more excited about what they're talking about. And they lean a little bit forward more. And they're doing this without realizing it. And then I'll stop and I will ask the audience with a show of hands, who noticed the point when this person started mirroring me? And almost every hand goes up. It's fascinating to see this happen. And you can utilize this this is not about manipulating, it's about connecting. I'm not doing anything to that person negative here. I'm just allowing myself to mirror them and connect with them, and then allowing them and gently nudging them through human psychology to do the same with me, which connects us. It bonds us. And that's what we want, is just to bond. That should be the reason we do all this stuff. Is at its core, it should be, I just want to have wonderful relationships with people. No ulterior motives, not what am I going to get out of it. It's not transactional. Our relationships in our lives should not be transactional. Some relationships are, in your business and things like that, yes. But if you want even those what's the word I was just using? If you want one of those relationships, the word just went out of my head. Look at that. I'm communicating so fast, I'm not building a rapport with myself. I need to mirror myself a little bit more so these things will stay in my head. If you want those relationships to be improved, then just do these things anyway. They'll naturally improve on their own. So mirroring can be done through voice, through body language, everything, okay? And mirroring can work both ways, like the example I just gave. Once you start mirroring them, they'll subconsciously start mirroring you, and you start naturally being in sync, okay? Transactional. Thank you, Julie. I don't know why translation came. Transactional. Those transactional relationships. That is not the goal we should ever be going for. Not even in sales. When I'm doing something where I'm trying to persuade someone of why the product or service I'm selling is going to be beneficial to them, I don't look at that as a transactional relationship. I'm looking at it as I genuinely want to find out what this person wants and help them to get it. That's what salespersonship is from its core. Being a great salesperson is about finding out what someone wants and helping them to get it. It's not about manipulating somebody to do something they don't want to do. It's not about forcing them to get something because it's the product you're selling, whether it's right for them or not. If that's the kind of salesperson you have to be, and it's transactional to that degree, then man, you're going to kind of have a miserable life, I think. You're just not going to really enjoy your life. But when you become about finding out what someone wants and helping them to get it, and you believe that your product can help almost anyone, you are truly going to be a non-stop force in salespersonship. Okay? All right. Let's move on from key point number 2. I could stay on that forever. I'm watching the time. My goodness, I am running behind here. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here, but thank you for reminding me that. Transactional is the word for the day. Don't be transactional in your relationships. Key point number 3. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. True fact here. Nobody cares how much you know about anything until they know how much you care. Now that kind of ties in with everything else we've talked about so far, right? This is about building proper relationships. Well, trust is the key. Trust is key to any relationship. And trust is always earned. We're not given trust. Okay? I mean, maybe as a child, as a baby, when we're born, we kind of naturally seem to, we're putting an awful lot of trust out there to our parents, right, to take care of us and so forth. But beyond that, trust is always earned in our relationships. Trust is key, and you build that rapport by understanding that you before you try to convince anyone of what you know, you've got to let them know that you care about them. Now, this is vital for all relationships, whether it's with your spouse, with your children, with your parents, with your coworkers, with the stranger you meet on the street, the cashier at the checkout lane at the grocery store. Every moment of every day, you have the choice. Am I improving someone's life or detracting or pulling away or having a negative influence on a person's life? Every interaction you have with somebody, you've got that opportunity. Carry that responsibility proudly. That's a powerful thing that we have. So remember, we're building trust. Here's a great example. Like, last time you went to a grocery store and you're sitting there, you've gone through the checkout lane, they've checked out everything, you put your credit card in, all that stuff. And what do we tend to say? We tend to say things, if anything, we tend to say things like, oh, well, thanks, have a good day, right? That's what they'll say to us. That's what we say to them. It means nothing anymore, right? The words, have a great day, or hi, how are you doing? All that stuff, they don't mean anything anymore. They're just things we say because that's what we're supposed to say. But imagine if instead, as they're checking through your stuff, you stopped and said, you know what? I just wanted to tell you, you're doing a phenomenal job. I've been watching you. You're scanning these things through so quickly, and just your rapport with everybody is wonderful. And I just want to thank you for doing such a great job, and I hope you're truly having a wonderful day here today. Okay, now just that little addition of something that is different than everything else they've heard. I am in essence saying kind of the same thing. But boy, do you think that probably had a positive effect on that person? Granted, it might be small, and the next person might yell at them about something and just turn it all on its ear. But it's about filling that cup full of goodness so that when some negativity drains some of that away, the positive is still outweighing the negative in that cup of joy that we carry around with us every day. You have the choice of being that for somebody. So next time you go to the grocery store, think of a way to give them a genuine, truthful compliment, or ask them a genuine question that isn't just the typical rote question that we have been brought up in this society to ask. Asking questions shows that you care. It goes back to point number 1 again. Asking questions shows that you genuinely care. Key point number 4. Meeting new people. Okay, so how do we use these points when we're meeting new people? First of all, stay focused on them. When we meet new people, again, the temptation is to start talking all about us. Don't do that. Start out asking about them. Somebody you just met that you know virtually nothing about. Ask them, hey, you know what? I noticed the shirt you're wearing. Do you mind me asking what inspired you purchasing and wearing that shirt today? Okay, there you go. That's something, right? I mean, if you know nothing about them. But if you met and you have some common interest, maybe you met in an audition for a theater show. Okay, theater people, it's pretty easy. We're used to kind of, but you start talking about, hey, what theater shows have you done? What's your favorite theater show you've ever done? And be quiet, let them answer, and then don't immediately respond by going into, well, you know what my favorite theater show was? My favorite theater show was this because I got to do this and this and this, and I was, no. Once they've responded with that, ask a little deeper. Oh, what a great show. I've never seen that show. Where did you perform it? Oh, great. If you could perform, would you do that show again if you had the opportunity to perform it again? Oh, I sure would. Well, what would you do differently? See, now you're focused on them. That is going to build an incredible relationship right there. It truly is. Stay away from hot button topics, man. This is a big one. This is with people that you're just meeting, somebody you don't know very well, someone you have not had a relationship for a long time. Okay, then that becomes a little different. But stay away from hot button topics. Don't talk politics. Don't talk religion. Don't talk things that typically we know can be hot button topics for people. It's not to say that they won't agree with you when you talk about it. It's fine. There's time for that later. We don't need to rush to that. I mean, I remember a time when we didn't talk about politics all the time. I remember those days. Those days seem long gone, don't they? It seems like everyone these days seemingly has something political that they can say. And that's fine. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But we don't need to talk about those hot button topics all the time. Not certainly when we're just meeting someone and trying to get to know them and let them get to know us after that, okay, and build a rapport. Stay away from those hot button topics. Leave them wanting more. Don't overstay your welcome. Again, this goes back to showmanship, right? In theater, in performing. I'm also a musician and have done live performance of music over the years. One of the first principles we learn is leave them wanting more. When you leave that stage, those people in the audience should want more. That's why they clap and cheer for an encore, right? You got to earn that encore. Leave them wanting more. Well, it's the same thing in a relationship when you just meet somebody. In a perfect world, when you leave there, you want them to think, oh man, I wish they weren't going away. This is great. I wish we could talk more. Leave them wanting more. Don't overstay your welcome. And it's a simple one. Use their name. Use their name. People love to hear the sound of their name spoken, right? So use their name frequently. Don't overuse it. You don't use it every sentence. But if you're talking to somebody, I'm talking to, let's say, Julie, who's in the chat right now, and I've just met Julie maybe, and I say, I'm asking her something and say, you know what, Julie, I was wondering, about this, or, oh, Julie, that is a beautiful necklace. I really love that. Just instead of saying, hey, that necklace is really cool, use their name, use it sparingly, but don't be afraid to use it. People love the sound of their own name. Very powerful stuff. All right, key point number 5. Before I get into key point number 5, just a reminder, if you're in the chat, you have a question, comment, you want something expanded on, whatever it is, type into the chat and let me know. And if you've just joined us, please type into the chat and just let us know that you're here. And we will be done here in about 10 minutes or so. Key point number 5, fixing bad communications with people you already know. So key point number 4 was about kind of meeting new people and applying these principles there. But now what do we do if we're trying to improve on or even repair a relationship that maybe isn't going as well as we would like in our lives? First of all, break the patterns. We all have patterns. We all suffer from this, okay? We all have patterns. Human nature is the creation of and manipulation of and even emulation of patterns. So sometimes what we have to do in the relationships that are closest to us, we've formed patterns, and some of those patterns are not healthy. Sometimes we just got to break that pattern. Both break that pattern for us, but also help to break that pattern in the other person. So for example, let's use a child. Okay, so let's say you're a parent and you're trying to communicate with a child, and the relationship the two of you have had recently has been quite combative. You need to go shower before you go to bed. I don't want to go take a shower. I'm not going to bed. I got stuff, I got other stuff to do. Dad said I don't have to go to bed. Well, I don't care what your father said. I'm saying you're going to bed. Maybe that's been the pattern that's formed, okay? Then maybe one of the first things you can do is, before having this conversation, say, so tell me about something that you loved that you did today. What was something you loved today? Well, I loved getting to play my video game. What was it you loved about playing? Break the pattern, because they're expecting you're going to come and say it's bedtime, right? Break that pattern. And maybe by breaking that pattern in that way, this isn't going to work perfectly every time, of course not. But maybe by breaking that pattern and asking them that question, now you can find that lovely segue to persuade them to do the thing that you know is best for them. They need to get to bed. Staying up all night playing their video game is not going to be the thing. So maybe by asking them that, you can say, well, you know what? One of the important things with playing those video games is you got to make sure that you're very attentive, right? It takes a lot of your attention. You got to be really good. You got to be quick with the fingers, right? You got to have that good hand-eye coordination. Sleep is an important part of that. So why don't you make sure, let's get you to bed tonight, and tomorrow, I'll bet you're going to be even better at playing that game than you were today. And I want you to let me know how that goes. All right, now that's just an example off the top of my head. Is that perfect? No, of course not. But you get it, right? You get it. Break the patterns. Let's say it's a spouse and the pattern of communication is to escalate. Then let's start out by saying, you know what? I just want you to know that I know we're disagreeing about this thing right now, and I want you to know that you're heard. And I want to truly understand your side of this. Because it'd be very easy for me to come at it completely from my side. And I want to know your side. So please help me to understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And I genuinely want to hear it. Okay? That just broke a pattern, didn't it? If the pattern was typically, well, I want to tell you what I feel here, and you're going to listen, darn it, right? Nothing positive comes from that. Break the patterns. Give them space to talk. And make it clear you're giving them space to talk. This is a hard one for me. This is one I've had to really work at, and I still fail miserably at this sometimes. Give people the space to talk and let them know. Don't jump in with a response. Don't jump in with, well, yeah, I know you feel that way, but I feel this, or here's why that's not right. Let them talk. Pause. Listen. Genuinely listen. Process, right? Julie says using names, typed into the chat, she says using the names when talking also helps you remember their name for later. Absolutely great point. With people that you're just meeting, it's great to repeat their name. If you're as bad at remembering names sometimes as I am, I've noticed the times I remember their names is when I use their names a good amount of time in that first conversation. Great point, Julie. But give people the space to talk. And here's another big one, don't try to fix everything. I'm a fixer. I want to help people fix their problems. I want to help people overcome the challenges they're in. I'm a fixer. So I always want to go in and I want to help them fix the problem. But sometimes what people need is not someone to fix it. They just need someone to be there to listen. They just need someone to be there to say, not say, well, here's how you fix it. You do this, this, and this. All I'm looking for is someone who's going to say, you know what? I understand. That really sucks. I get it. And I'm sorry that you're going through that. And if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Sometimes that's all people need. So don't always feel like you have to be the fixer. Just be the listener. Just be the shoulder. Just be the person they can go to communicate openly and have the trust that it will connect there. Okay. Remind them of something wonderful. This is another great one. Remind them of something wonderful in your relationship. Remind them of something wonderful from your point of view, maybe. In that relationship or that example of having a conversation with your significant other where you're having a disagreement. Maybe it's time to, you know what, before we talk about this, I was thinking earlier this morning about that time that we went to Chicago. And do you remember when we went into that museum and we saw that family over there and we commented on how, lucky we are to get to do the things that we get to do as a family and, whatever it is. I mean, just remind them of something wonderful. Remind them of something wonderful about them that you love. It's breaking that pattern again. They're expecting sometimes that you're going to go in there guns blazing, right? We're having a disagreement. Sometimes just remind them of something wonderful. That's not being weak in a disagreement. That's the other thing is people can get so focused on and so obsessed by having the place of power, especially, unfortunately, I think, men. I think it's testosterone or something. It's in society. You gotta be strong. You gotta be dominating. That's BS. It's BS. What makes a great man is not being strong and powerful all the time. I mean, yeah, strength and power can be great in either gender. But what makes a great man are some of the same things that make a great woman. Being a great listener, being an understanding person, being there to help, being there to equalize things. I could have a conversation about this for hours, for days, for weeks. What is it that makes a great man? What is it that makes a great person? What makes a great man are the same things that make a great person. And what makes a great negotiator, what makes a great person in a debate, it's not the person who has power and strength over the other. What makes a great debater is somebody who can help find the common ground between the disagreements and then can persuade the other side to see their side. You don't do that through powering through it. Okay? Now, I know there are people out there that would disagree with that, especially in the business world. Okay? And yes, I'm sure there are plenty of examples where sheer power and force and manipulation won out the day. But in the long run, that never wins out. In the long run, the people, the businesses, the organizations that stay, that have great reputations, are the ones that do this the right way. I got a little off track there, but I hope you get the point there. And last but not least, some responsibility is on them as well. Darius Colquitt and Company sent a heart. Hey, Darius, great to have you here and company. I wonder who and company is. Because you know what, Darius, I know enough about you. You are a lot of company. Darius is a phenomenal friend, person, performer. There are so many sides, as there are with all of us, to Darius. And I always love getting to know each one of them. Maybe that's the Darius and Company right there. We've got all of Darius here today, and I love it. But great to have you here as well. Some responsibility is on them as well, of course. Now, does this mean that when we do all of these key points that we've talked about here, that all of our communications are going to go well? No, of course it does not. They're not always going to go well. Now that you've opened that door, now some of the responsibility is on them to either say, oh, well, thank you. And you know what? I'm going to genuinely listen to you too. That's fine. Or they might say, well, I don't care. I just want to say what's on my mind. And you're just going to sit and listen. Okay, all right. All we can control is how we respond. All we can do is control how we react. Darius says, anyone who's with me, that's company. Love that. Darius has a lot of company because there's a lot of people with Darius on a moment-to-moment basis, and I count myself as one of them. Julie says, I'm so sorry, but I need to leave. I have a house full of guests that are all finally awake. Love this week as always. Thank you so much. You bet, Julie. Thank you for letting us know you're scooting out. It was great having you on here, and we're just going to go for a couple more minutes. We're almost wrapped up here as well, but I hope you have a great day with guests in the house, a house full of love. House full of love. What more could we ask for, right? All right, so with that, I hope this was helpful today. If you have a question, comment, thought, anything like that, if you're on here live, type it into the chat right now, and I'll respond to that. If you're watching the recording of this on YouTube, please feel free to comment in the comments field. I'll be checking the comments as well and communicating back. I may not get to them every single day. So the best way to communicate is obviously to be on here live. This may be the last of these programs that we do for a while, but we will see. If you'd like to see more of these, pop on to the Facebook group. If you're in the Facebook group, go into the comments of any of these videos and say, I'd like more of these. I'd like to have these keep coming every week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever. Comment and let me know that these are helpful. If they're helpful, and you're getting stuff out of these, I'm happy to keep doing these. That's why I do these, is like I said at the beginning, in the hopes of getting to just one of you, helping out just one of you to be a better person, a better communicator, get more out of your life, whatever it is. Julie, I already read that from Julie. So thank you so much for everyone for being here. Have a great rest of the weekend. And hopefully I'll be coming to you again very soon But communicate with me. Let me know if you'd like more of these to continue happening. And if you haven't watched them already, by the way, go back and watch the previous live events as well. And if you can't find them for some reason, type into the comments of this video, and I'll make sure that you can find the links to all of those to watch on YouTube anytime you like as well. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye-bye, all.